This is a question that I get asked often about premarital counselling, whether it's Islamic or not. Before going into it, premarital counselling essentially is when, in the Western context, when two people find each other, in many instances they date for a while, and then they go to premarital counselling, whether to a qualified counsellor or a priest or a knowledgeable person. And they talk about issues regarding marriage and what they want, the expectations of marriage and so on and so forth. This is to avoid potential misunderstandings and potential dangers and pitfalls after the wedding ceremony. And Muslims, they ask whether this is allowed. Obviously, first and foremost, in Islam, there is no such thing as dating or even halal dating. Traditionally, even in the European cultures, when two people wanted to get married, well, two families, they got together, they lived in a small town, they knew each other. Their desires and wants and expectations and ideas and values were very, very similar. And, the awliya or the guardians of their two families were together, and they would, propose this to their prospective, spouses, and they would agree. And this is how, in Islamic cultures or Muslim cultures, marriage tends to work. Many Muslims live in the Western cultures, in UK, in Europe, in America. Things have changed. The ideals and the values of marriage has rapidly changed, especially the post-industrial revolution, when people began to, come together in urban towns and cities. Secularization took place. So the ideals of marriage and values, expectations of marriage has somewhat, changed. The ideas and values of marriage that people, talk about, they probably get from the movies, the arts and entertainment industry, even the mental health industry, what a marriage should be, how a marriage should function, what a husband should do, what a wife should do, and so on and so forth. The mental health industry, with their own philosophy and theology, they have certain kind of ideals and framework or paradigm that they convey and they advance. So Islamically, I think ideally you should not have premarital counselling with someone else, because the family should get involved. The families who understand their daughter, understand their son, understand Islam and what they want and what they want from their marriage. The families should get involved. That's the traditional way, and that still happens in the UK, in many parts of the world. But however, sometimes the families, their involvement or their expectations can confuse their situation, and it can lead the couple, to situations where they don't want to be in. So what I've been doing and I've been advising people is that obviously dating is haram, dating is prohibited, but when the families find someone, or if you find someone that you want to get married to, obviously you don't start speaking to them privately. Go to your parents, go to their parents and say, this is what we are thinking, and we would like to, explore their idea of marriage. So when that happens, and even if families come together, if the families can do all of those things I mentioned, if not, then it's ideal, and I've seen it work and I've done it for many years, is that the two couples, they, without the family involvement, with the knowledge of the family, of course, they come to someone who's a Islamic scholar who understands the issues. Some counselling background and psychology background is helpful, albeit from a non-secular Western perspective, and they can discuss from the Islamic perspective, from the Islamic paradigms, and what they want, what they desire, because there are a lot of, discussions that take place after marriage. And I always say to people that if you had discussed this properly with a knowledgeable person before marriage, not to formulate a contract, because sometimes, again, the fiqh books and the legal books, they cover the legalities, which is really, really important. But in a marriage where two people have their own desires and feelings and emotions and wants and expectations and ideals, it's very difficult to say, oh, this is my haqq, this is my right, and you have not done my haqq, my right. Although this is important, but it has to be good communication. People need to come together, open communication, transparent, honest communication. And this has to be done, within the framework of, wanting good for the other, desiring good for the other. And sometimes sacrifice and compromises needs to be made, because when you get married, you are not the same person that you were before married. You have to think about other people, your wife, your husband, your children, and even the wider family. So, they say that when Muslims get married, generally, in particular from certain communities, two kind of entities or two communities or two families get married. So issues that are related to finance, whether the wife should work or not, where should they live and how should they live, all these kind of things, come into the marriage after they get married. And if they are not properly, I know they may seem simplistic, but if they're not dealt with properly from, number one, from Islamic perspective, and both being transparent and honest on what they want, with the caveat that, life is a roller coaster, things change. But as long as you have someone who's knowledgeable, who has the Islamic background and some psychology counseling background, then I think that's really, really helpful, and I've seen it work, tremendously. Now, people might ask, okay, who do we go to? Now, there are certain qualities or characteristics that people need to look at. Number one, I believe that they should be Islamic scholar, so have the traditional grounding, understanding of fiqh and usul and tafsir and hadith, because they will bring with them a traditional worldview, inshallah, generally. Number two, right, they should be obviously also married, right? It doesn't mean people who are not married, they cannot do that, but ideally they should have also the similar experiences of getting married and the challenges of marriage. Number three is that they should have some background of how to mediate and counseling, couple counseling, and some psychology, and have some experience, right? Be wise, and have experience within the community. It's very difficult, or it's something that I would definitely advise people not to go to people who are even non-Muslims who are not trained, or Muslims who are not trained within the Islamic paradigm. I heard stories and I've seen stories, and these are all over the world. There's one particular story where a couple came, and the couple, they live a good life. The husband earns, the wife also earns. They live a good life. They have children. There are always struggles and difficulties and challenges within marriage, but something happened, maybe a discussion or disagreement. So one of the spouses, they went to a secular trained counselor, and after a period of time, that particular spouse wanted divorce, and the other spouse was saying, subhanallah, what's going on here? We live a happy life. We go to holidays and we don't have big disagreements or arguments. We have nice children. We provide everything for each other, right? So after 8-10 sessions, one particular spouse wanted divorce, or they're not fulfilled within the marriage. They have not actualized within the marriage, and it had a lot of headache, right? So what I'm trying to say is that even people who are secular trained within the different modalities of counseling, a lot of the modalities, or most of the modalities, Western secular modalities, are anti-family, right? Implicitly anti-family, anti-marriage, right? People might think or assume that, okay, well, this is a big statement. But if you understand the modality, the approaches, the techniques, the philosophy, the theology, the framework of these modalities, I'm sure that you would agree with me that they are. We can't go into it maybe for another video. That's why it's important that if you want to, again, it's not ideal, but if you need to do premarital counseling, it can save a lot of headache, right? Is go to a Islamic scholar, Muslim scholar who has some background and understanding and wisdom and experience in this area. Avoid going to people who are only trained in the secular framework, because they are very problematic, right? And directly it may not seem very problematic, but even the techniques and the approaches implicitly that they use, right, they are harmful, right, and they potentially could be dangerous for the individual and for their family and their community. To summarize, premarital counseling is not haram as long as so certain guidelines are followed, inshallah. We don't even need to go to halal and haram, right? But as long as certain guidelines are followed, it's perfectly fine, inshallah. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.